Longhorn Nation, Sooner fans, welcome to episode 110 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, hashtag breaking news. As of 2 hours ago, we are recording on April 24th at 10:30 in the morning, Central Daylight Time. 2 hours ago, Kevin, did you see the breaking news?
What might that be?
Reggie Bush is getting his Heisman Trophy back. The Heisman Trust has reversed course and has said, based on the new rulings of the NCAA and the amateurism in college sports, Reggie Bush is being returned his Heisman Trophy. He will be allowed to be at all Heisman Trophy related events going forward, starting this year in 2024. Kevin, is justice finally being served to Reggie Bush?
Yeah, man, I think so. I mean, is he the only one on that Heisman stage that took illegal benefits?
No, absolutely not. It's absolutely impossible.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought they overreacted when they took the trophy away from him. I mean, has anybody ever lost their Heisman before?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, like for him to be the only one. And, we've had some Heisman winners that have maybe done some worse things than that, who still have their trophy. So
I don't know about your or Earl Campbell, but I have to think that our Billy Sims was making some oil money back in the day. I just have to think that.
Imagine so.
I mean, the dude was living too high on life, and I got no problem with this. We've talked about this. This is like this historic college football. I'm saying we could pick anybody from any school, but I'll pick it from my school. I think Billy Sims was being compensated to play football at the University of Oklahoma. I don't know. Is Earl Campbell above that sort of thing? Possibly. But back in the day, come on.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we saw the Marcus Dupree documentary, right? The Best That Never Was, and just a little insight on what went into his recruitment.
Absolutely.
Him wanting a double wide trailer. Switzer was like, "Oh, that's it? Come on, man."
Yeah, you got to up your asking price.
Yes.
For USC specifically, does this restore their 2004 national championship, the one that they so violently won over the University of Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, who we blame Ashley Simpson for 100%? Does this restore USC's national championship at some point?
Real quick, what was the score at halftime when Ashley Simpson came? I don't remember, but
dude, it was a lot to a little by then. I mean, the game was over. You're saying I shouldn't blame Ashley Simpson?
I don't think so. I blame Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and Dwayne Jarrett and Steve Smith and their defense was really good that year.
Who's the receiver for Oklahoma that ended up playing at Texas? Ended up playing in Chicago. Mark Bradley.
Mark Bradley.
I blame Mark Bradley for trying to make a play on a punt. Here's the deal.
When he's surrounded by five guys.
I've said this before. He makes that play, he's probably still running into the end zone. Like there was open field ahead of him. It's really stupid. It was
four or five USC defenders right around him.
Dude, like a 2% chance of success. I get it. Yeah. It was really, 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 really dumb. But he made so many athletic plays throughout that year to get us to the national championship game. Sometimes dude just thought he was going to make a play. He did not make the play.
He really came out of nowhere that year.
Yeah, it ended up having a very good year in the pro, a very good career in the pros. Not like crazy good, but better than anybody thought he was going to have.
Correct. Yeah, he just was not the guy. Clayton was the guy, Travis Wilson, and then it's like, where'd this guy come from?
So you agree with me though that Ashley Simpson's to blame? That's what I need to go back to. I need to make sure we're on the same page.
We're not on the same page, but hey, whatever. Listen, we've had tough losses, so whatever you got to do to deal with that, to cope, you have at it, man.
That was the worst loss. You're coming off the loss to LSU, in the national championship game, and you're like, well, that was a good game, but maybe we should have won. We played better than LSU did. We're a better team than LSU. We had to play them in the Superdome, all the excuses that came into that loss. And you're just thinking, okay, this is the year we finish. We have Adrian Peterson this time around, best freshman performance ever. Jason White still at quarterback, loaded offensively and defensively, and just flat out didn't show up.
3 NFL linemen on the offensive line.
Didn't show up. But when they vacated that, I just think the vacating wins and vacating national championships or bowl games or whatever people do is the stupidest thing in the world. I think it is so dumb.
Yeah, nobody knows that they vacated. We know what we saw on the field that year. Same with Reggie Bush. I'm taking his Heisman away. And look, I firmly believed that Vince Young should have won the Heisman Trophy that year. But again, I know what I saw on the field from Reggie Bush that season, right? And them taking his Heisman away and USC vacating those wins and really turning their back on him, a guy who's done more for their program, as much for their program as anyone. They turned their back on him.
Did they really?
We know
USC did?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, well, that's weak. You got to stand up for your players. You have to stand up for your players. You got to have their backs. But Pete Carroll jumped ship quick though, man. When he saw the sanctions were coming, he jumped ship and
he got a great opportunity at the same time. It really worked out for him. It just so happened that the sanctions were coming, and because they had always asked him if he wanted to go back to the NFL, and he said the only way he would go back to the NFL is if they gave him personnel control, and it just so happened that the Seahawks offered him that at the same time. Do
you think he jumped ship, or do you think he took an opportunity? Or are you saying two things are true?
I think both are true. Yeah.
I don't know. I've been very adamant. I've never been a Pete. There's a lot of people I'm not fans of. Pete Carroll is pretty darn close. Sent USC into a spiral of suck for I don't know that they've recovered yet. I mean, they went 7-5 last year with a Heisman Trophy quarterback.
Well, do you take that though after the 2 national championships?
Do you sell your soul
for a USC fan? Yeah.
I don't. You know what? It's hard to say. I don't know. I don't know if you do or don't. Like you look at Kentucky basketball. You're a blue blood. I guess we're calling SC a blue blood. That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you take your 2013 national championship and go for 10 years without very many wins in the NCAA? I guess they made it to a final the next year, but that was it. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. It's an interesting question to ask of teams, because you look at Oklahoma. We win the one national championship in 2000 and have relatively sustained success. A couple of hiccups in 09.
Yeah, it was incredible in the 2000s. I mean,
a hiccup in 09. A hiccup in 14. Where you
14 was weird.
Yeah, but one year hiccup.
09, right? You had your quarterback's out for the year basically, and then your tight ends out for the year. So not much you can do there.
And so we took the win and had sustained success with near misses in college football playoffs, or I don't know because that's not what Oklahoma's experienced. It's just it still feels like a desert. It still feels like a desert when you don't have a national championship or even feel like you've had a real shot at it. So it's really interesting. I do think the Heisman Trust did the right thing. I don't think they should have ever taken it away. I don't think it was their call to take it away.
Agreed.
I don't know what they were. Well, I mean, it's their call to do what they want with it, but I don't think they needed to make a stand here. Like it was an empty gesture, and I think it was stupid. But anyway, get Reggie Bush, and I also need Reggie Bush back on Wendy's commercials. He was so good on Wendy's commercials.
We do, man, and we need him back on Fox. Was he in the pregame? He was in the pregame show last year.
No, they had the running back from Ohio State, right?
No,
from Alabama. Yeah, from Alabama. You're right.
Yeah, I like Mark Ingram, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about one of the best college football players of all time with Reggie Bush, and he needs to be around the game.
I know he doesn't have SEC ties, but would you take him on game day or any type of show on ESPN covering the SEC?
Of course.
Yeah, me too. I would. I liked Reggie. I think he got close. Okay. SEC football odds. We are going to talk spring game today. We are going to talk NBA playoffs. We are going to talk transfer portal. But real quick, yesterday, FanDuel issued their SEC football odds to win the SEC championship. No surprise, Georgia plus 185. Texas at plus 300. University of Texas coming off a college football playoff, coming off a Big 12 championship. You lose key players on the defensive line, key players at the skill positions, although Ryan Wingo looks legit, which we'll talk about. Is plus 300 too high for Texas, too low, or just right?
It might be slightly high, but you know how it is, man. Texas is very polarizing. So you put them up there, you're going to get a lot of action, right? You're either going to get Texas fans jumping on it, Texas haters saying, oh, there's no way, putting all their money against it. So I get why they put him there. I think we're going to be good this year. My way too early predictions that we're going to be pretty good. Are we going to be as good as last year? I don't know. We've got some holes to fill and some questions that definitely need answering, but I think we're going to be pretty good.
I'm okay with Texas being there. You're like, again, coming off a college football playoff, same coach, same quarterback, offensive line largely intact. I think that there's holes on the defensive side. I don't think you're going to be able to hold up against the run as well as you did last year, but that's just the way college football works sometimes. I think you had a moment in time where y'all were really, really good, and I don't think you're going to be bad. I just don't think you're going to be Byron Murphy, T'Vondre Sweat good.
It's virtually impossible to replicate that.
But you maybe make it up for in other areas. Pass defense, your linebacker.
The pass rush should be a lot better. We'll get into it, but yeah, that's what's going to be the difference this year.
But I also think Texas has a very, you play Michigan in the non-con, so it's not a weak schedule by any means, and it's still an SEC schedule. But compared to like an Oklahoma, it is a very favorable SEC schedule.
Yeah, manageable for sure.
So
manageable schedule. It should be favored in almost all of their SEC games.
And I assume that this odds is to win the SEC championship game. Is that?
I would imagine.
Is that how you would read that?
Yes.
So you don't even have to necessarily beat Georgia in the regular season. We're talking a second rematch against Georgia, likely, or somebody else. If you're having to beat, you can afford a loss and still make it to the SEC championship game. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Texas deals with success. Because previous to success, you've dealt with expectations. And up until last year, you failed miserably against those expectations for the previous 15 years, right? You've been built up. Texas is back. Texas is this. Texas is that. Now it's like, okay, can Texas replicate it? That's the storyline going into the season. I think Texas has a chance of being a very, very good team, winning the SEC championship. I don't know if I'm putting money on it, but the schedule, the experience at quarterback, the experience at coach, and all of those things, I think put you in a position to compete for it. Is that fair?
No, it's more than fair. Yeah.
Ole Miss plus 650, returning Jackson Dart. I don't know their schedule off the top of my head. That's not necessarily what we're doing. Bama's plus 950. I think maybe Bama is probably 300 points better with Nick Saban there, but this is where they're at. I think that's probably about right. LSU at plus 950. That's an interesting one because you're losing Jaden Daniels, and they were 9-3 last year anyway.
Yeah, and you're losing 2 first-round receivers.
Their quarterback, it's got a funny name. What's LSU's? Nessmeyer. I guess he got some playing time, but I don't know. I don't know that you're just like worried about that guy at LSU, are you?
I mean, not really. I think they'll be all right. I think with their scheme, they'll have guys ready to go, especially at the receiver position. With LSU, it all comes down to their defense. I mean, they were horrendous defensively last year. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't cover, really couldn't stop the run. They couldn't do anything.
Well, somebody has to be in that, what would be the 5th spot. I guess LSU's fine. I'm not arguing for Oklahoma to be under plus 1,000, okay? I think LSU, there's enough questions around OU's team, new quarterback, things like that. But now we're starting to get into the area where I'm thinking, are these teams really better than Oklahoma? And what's the dynamic there? What's going on? Tennessee at plus 1,100. They're rolling out a new quarterback. Um, yeah, I don't trust LSU. I don't trust Tennessee. I mean, they again another 9-3 team with Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, we like the talent of the quarterback, right? I mean, dude was a five-star
Oh, so
guy.
they are they returning him, or is this a new? It's a new quarterback, right?
He's a new quarterback. He played in their bowl game. He was a true
Okay,
freshman last year,
so a
but
very
he's one
Jackson
of those
Arnold like
crazy talents.
situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they're at plus 1100. I don't know. Maybe okay, that's fine. Then you have Missouri at plus 1500. I know people are high on Missouri. I just don't trust them as a program. We'll see. Again, at plus 1500, maybe yes, no, I don't know. Then you've got A&M at plus 2000. Is that just the A&M brand getting people to bet on them? Because new
No
coach,
idea. Yeah.
mediocre quarterback, another terrible season. They got their coach fired. It was so bad. They still have to play in the SEC. They're adding Texas to their schedule. I just don't even understand what the hell we're talking about. A&M is
I like
terrible.
their quarterback, Wegman.
He's
He's got a
fine.
lot of talented, but he just hasn't played a lot. He just hasn't. He got injured early in the year. I think it was against Miami, second or third game of the year. He missed the rest of the season. So they still don't know what they have there. They've got some talent on the roster. They have lost a lot of players from that big time recruiting class that was rated as the highest rated recruiting class of all time. A lot of those guys are gone. So we'll see what they have, man. There's still some talent there. The coach should give them a boost. The coach coming from Duke, I think he's hungry. He's a good defensive coach. We'll see, man. We'll see. I think they're just really going by some of the talent that's on the roster. Maybe they think they'll get a boost from having a different coach with Jimbo Fisher being gone.
I mean, rarely do you see excellent results in year one with a new coach. I mean, it needs to be like a very set up situation, like a Ryan Day for um,
Ohio State.
Urban Meyer
Yeah.
type situation. I mean, I don't think we're counting on Sharon Moore up at Michigan to have that kind of year. I don't think
Yeah.
we're counting on Kalen DeBoers at Alabama to have that type of year. I mean, it's got to be a real unique, like plug and play. This guy was, and I don't know. I don't know why Elko is getting all this credit. I don't know why A&M's getting credit. The only thing I can think of is that there's enthusiasm around the program and it's driving that lineup, but or down, whichever way you want to look at it, it's making it a more favorable line for A&M. I don't buy it. I don't understand. And so then that puts Oklahoma next on the list at plus 4,000. And I'm thinking a value pick. I think that's a value pick for Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, 4,000. And so double, or half the odds of A&M. That's very interesting.
Well, half the odds
Right,
of
because A&M was
A&M,
2,000, right?
yes. And then I think Oklahoma should be in the Tennessee, Missouri range, kind of plus 1,200, plus 1,400,
Yeah,
just
I think
because
so.
the, I mean, Oklahoma is returning all their defense for the most part. Pretty talented quarterback, and this is Brent Venables' third season on an upward trajectory. Now, should they be the favorite? Absolutely not. Should they be in the top three with Texas, Bama, and Georgia? Nobody's advocating that. But in terms of are they a better football team than LSU? I think it's very
That's a
debatable.
possibility.
Better
Yeah.
football team than Tennessee? Very debatable. Like right there on the edge. Missouri, I say yes. A&M, absolutely yes. They're a better football team, program, better position, better culture, all the things. I just can't even imagine that A&M is getting more love than Oklahoma. It blows my mind. And if this is what we have to look forward in the SEC, I mean, I guess you get the chip on your shoulder, but it just seems weird.
Well, I think it's first of all, I think it's always good to be an underdog, right?
100%.
I think most programs operate better as the underdog, fewer expectations, right? I think that's something that again makes what Bama has been able to do under Saban for so long. That's what makes that great. The fact
Yeah.
that they were always starting the season ranked number one, and more often than not, they would finish number one. There's just so much expectation, and for them to always fight through that and get the job done. So it makes him the greatest coach of all time. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised with how low OU was picked. And again, there are questions there, right? And I think they're legit questions. A new quarterback, he's a five-star guy, right? And I think it's the combination, though, of a new quarterback and the offensive line not knowing who's there. We'll see how the roster shakes up. A couple weeks left, or about a week left in the transfer portal. Maybe they'll change once the roster is seemingly set for this season, upcoming season, and they see what that offensive line looks like. But I think that's really the biggest questions. Venables, you're going to get good linebacker play. Defensive line, we'll see how they hold up against the run in the SEC. I think that might be some question marks that people have. Secondary should be good. So, yeah, man, we'll see.
Well, real quick, we know Oklahoma's schedule's tough, and we've talked about it a lot.
It's a gauntlet, man.
A&M opens up against Notre Dame. I think that's a heck of a game. A&M has to play
Where's that
Florida.
game at, by the way? Do you know where that is? Does it show?
It looks like A&M unless it's at a neutral site.
Oh, it's at Kyle Field. Wow. Okay.
Let's see. Let me see if they've got any. It says at A&M and says Kyle Field on Google here. So
okay, perfect then.
They open up SEC play against Florida, probably a win. Arkansas, probably a win. Missouri, Mississippi State, probably a win. They lose to LSU. Toss up against South Carolina. End at Auburn and Texas. I think A&M has more favorable schedule than Oklahoma. If that's being factored into this number, I can buy into that. At least the logic that A&M has an easier schedule. I can't buy into the fact that A&M is going to have more wins than Oklahoma or a better chance of making the SEC championship. It just doesn't compute in my brain. But maybe I'm a homer. You're a Texas fan. I mean, what am I missing?
Yeah. No, nothing. They must really think that this coach can come in and get the most out of that talented defensive line.
He coached at Duke, man. I mean, we're not bringing in freaking Paul Bear Bryant over here. Like,
hey, I mean, you never know, man. Maybe Elko is right. You never know.
Yeah, dude.
I'm never going to say anything to promote Texas A&M. I'm just trying to figure out what these guys are thinking. What's going into their thinking?
Auburn plus 5,000, Kentucky plus 9,000, South Carolina 10, Florida 11, Arkansas 15,000, Mississippi State 20,000, Vandy 50,000 plus 50,000. I feel like going to put $10 on Vanderbilt just.
Why not?
Just because. I mean, my gosh, that's a ginormous line. I do not think they have any chance of winning it. But anyway, again, Wednesday night. So that's your SEC football odds. I think Texas is appropriately ranked. I think Oklahoma's way, way too low. But we'll see. NBA playoffs, Kevin. You will be at game 2 tonight at the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City as the Thunder face the Pelicans. My thoughts on the game was that the crowd, if anything, overamped the Thunder in the first half. And I don't know that the Thunder were ready for playoff intensity, both from the crowd and from the opposing team. I thought New Orleans really locked them down defensively in the first half. But they bounce back. They get the win. Chet Holmgren with a great block at the final moments of the game. And then SGA, of course, getting the 3-point play. They pretty much sealed the deal. Can we expect a different type of game in game 2? Or is this level of dogfight exactly what we're going to get in game 2?
Okay. I think we'll get another dogfight, but I think the Thunder will play better. I think the offense will be a little bit crisper. Remember, they didn't play for a week. Their last game was Sunday and a blowout win against Dallas. So they had a whole week without playing a game. So they looked a little bit rusty. New Orleans has some really good defenders, specifically Herb Jones. I think he's one of the best on-ball defenders in the entire NBA. They had him on SGA a lot. And I thought he has a length to kind of get in his space more than most defenders can. The game naturally slows down in the playoffs as well. So that has a lot to do with it. But I do think the Thunder will be a little bit more crisp today. This is going to be a good series. I still think the Thunder win it in 6. But, I think every game's going to be tough.
Shea went for 28, 6, and 4. He was only 11 and 24 from a field goal percentage and 0-3 of 3-point. Do we need more from Shea in order to go ahead and win this series?
I think so, but he'll be fine, right? I mean, he's one of the best players in the NBA. Again, everybody was a little, off rhythm. And like you said, that crowd, I've been to quite a few games this year, and with 20 minutes before tip off, it was already louder than I had heard the arena at any point this season. This is 20 minutes before tip off. It was deafening in there. I mean, like my ears were literally hurting. It was
I
so
think
loud.
I think in the NBA that the playoffs in the NBA are it's a completely different sport than the regular season. Like it's just
Yes.
it's like you jockey for position. If you can get on some runs, you get on some runs. But you're literally just trying to make the playoffs because once you get into the playoffs, it all changes. Um, it is so fun for the Thunder to be back in the playoffs. I just think I don't think anything. I think we get a little more out of Shea. Like you said, he settles down. I think J Dub, you're going to see a little bit better performance from him in game two. I think, but I do think the Thunder need to. This is going to sound obvious. Need to win game two. They need to stock up wins in case Zion comes back.
Absolutely agree.
That guy, we talked about him in the last one. I don't want to go into that, but he's a really, really good player, and he would cause matchup problems for Oklahoma City. So we need to stock some wins up. We need to get to 2-3-0 just in case he comes back, just so we kind of have that buffer built in. I think if you win game two, though, I think Oklahoma is in really, really good shape.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because Valanciunas, the center for New Orleans, had 20 rebounds in game one. But again, they were able to overcome that. But if Zion comes back, I'm not sure who guards him, right? If Chet is guarding Valanciunas, who is going to guard Zion?
Is that
Like you said,
is he too big for Lou Dort?
I think so, man. It would be interesting. I mean, look, Lou Dort is a dog. He made life hell for Brandon Ingram in game one. He
Yeah,
was all up in his
because
face.
who guards Brandon Ingram, right?
Correct.
It just goes down that's the problem, right? It just goes down the list of you start having to shift players around, and eventually, again, you got to stockpile wins with Zion on the bench. I still think Oklahoma City is probably a better team. They're the 1 seed versus 8 seed. I mean, but they need to go ahead and take care of it.
It's all about matchups. And one thing that's interesting in the playoffs is just how low the scores get. If you look at the scoring, in most of these games, yesterday's game, Dallas and the Clippers, 96-93.
Yeah.
The Lakers the other night, 101-99. Usually most teams are scoring in the high 110s, every game. So it becomes more of a half-court physical game.
Let's talk about your Mavericks over the Clippers. I'm not a Mavericks fan. You're not a Mavericks fan. But let's talk about the Mavericks. They respond in game two to even the series up 1-1. I don't think Doncic was ready for playoff basketball. I don't think the Mavs were ready for playoff basketball in game one. They just didn't look, good. They looked really, really bad.
Yeah, they did not prepare at all.
I worry about the Clippers if the Mavericks wake up because I just don't trust. I mean, nobody on the Clippers do I trust in the playoffs. We talked about this going into the playoffs.
Well, yeah, and I trust Kawhi, but I mean, that's if he's healthy, right? It's his first game back. He's okay, 15 points, 7 rebounds. Paul George was solid, 22. You got 22 out of Harden, but yeah, not enough. Not enough on the scoring there.
The New York Knicks take a 2-0 lead in 2 very dramatic wins against the 76ers. Last night, did Tyrese Maxey did he commit a foul there in the waning moments of the game against Philadelphia? Does Philadelphia have a legitimate gripe with the officials? Because it sure looked like a tackle to me.
Yeah, it looked like a foul to me. Yeah. It's one of those ones, man. Sometimes they swallow the whistle at just random times. And they certainly did that because, even watching it live, I thought he got fouled.
Joel Embiid has never been out of the second round of the playoffs. I'm not sure he makes it out of the first round this year.
Yeah.
What do you think about that situation? Do you think Joel Embiid is just destined to be one of those really, really good regular season players that fades in the playoffs?
It certainly seems that way, right? I mean, we've given certain guys a lot of stuff for not having playoff success, right? LeBron we were all over him for not getting his team, not winning a championship, right? Despite him taking that 07 Cavs team to the finals. You wonder if that's going to start coming his way more than it has been. Because, we talk about all that process stuff with Philadelphia and all those number one picks and top picks that they had, and to not have gotten out of the second round, man, it just makes you question everything with them, their organization, and unfortunately with him. As good as he's been, and I thought he deserved to be the MVP last year, but man, you got to get it done in the playoffs, and he just hasn't so far.
Is there any more argument over him versus Jokic being who's a better center? There can't be, right?
No.
I mean, Embiid's probably more talented, but it doesn't matter.
He is more talented, but yeah, it doesn't matter, man. And again, he's carrying Jokic and carry that team, and they've got good players, but so does Philadelphia.
Jamal Murray in the playoffs is a totally different player. He's an all-star in the playoffs. It's crazy.
It really is.
Real quick, other highlights. Cavs up 2-0 on the Magic. Celtics 1-0 on the Heat. Nuggets in 2 comeback wins against the Lakers. I just don't know if LA is going to have the legs to keep letting them come back. They don't even have the legs in the games they're playing, let alone future games. They get up and they wear out.
Correct. It's crazy because you're getting the biggest questions were like, okay, you got LeBron. He's played a lot of games this year. He's 39 years old. Anthony Davis has been beat up. Like, can you get consistent performances from those guys against this Nuggets team? And you have. They've been great. Both of them have. And it just didn't matter. It hasn't mattered. So I just don't see how it gets better for them.
Bucks over the Pacers 1-0 right now. And then we'll end up.
They played last night, actually. It's 1-1 now.
Oh, is it 1-1? I apologize.
Yeah, Milwaukee beat them.
Tyrese Halliburton said his brother was called a racist name. At what point in the sporting world with fans that are stupid drunk and stupid and probably racist, when do you just kind of do you call it out every time? Is that something that you have to do? Or is it something like or it's the playoffs and Tyrese, just focus on the game, bro. Try to win a game.
No,
what do you think?
I mean, if he said it after the game, it's not like he ran into the stands or anything, right? Trying to fight the guy. But, fans like this, we got to make sure. I think it has to be called out when these things happen because that is what makes things better. Because I think these problems need to be a lot worse. I think the more attention that gets brought to it, the less it is to happen, especially when there are public consequences, right?
Well, it needs to be a zero. If it happened, which it sounds like it did. I'm not questioning Tyrese. I mean, it sounds like it did. But if it happened,
this is the first time hearing about it, by the way. So
it needs to be zero tolerance. This stuff needs to be zero tolerance. I just wonder how much a player needs to engage in it, though, right? Like it.
No,
did
he my brother, or did he just mention it?
It was after the game.
Yeah.
After the game.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I know, but I just asked.
No. I'm not questioning you for asking me. I'm just, I think when something like this happens, I think you mentioned it after the game. I think he handled it well. It's not like he ran into the stands trying to fight the guy, or that's if he even heard it. Maybe his brother just told him what happened.
Yeah.
So hopefully, Milwaukee finds this guy and just bans him.
It needs to be.
There's a message to everybody. Yeah, you can't say things like. I mean, again, you can heckle players, right? Heckling is okay, but certain things you just can't say.
And you can't say, you shouldn't say, it has no business. Lastly, though, things about players I'm likely to heckle. Minnesota's up 2-0 on the Suns. This was a failed experiment going back to the summer when I told you it was going to be a failed experiment. I told you Kevin Durant was going to suck with the Suns. Have you seen anything to indicate that they are not going to, fall flat on their face for the rest of this series? Because I haven't. This Phoenix Suns look terrible. They look terrible.
They don't look good at all. They are getting locked down. They're getting locked down. The Minnesota defense has been really good, right? We know what you're going to get from Gobert, multiple Defensive Player of the Year winner in the NBA. Jaden McDaniels,
the person singly responsible for spreading COVID throughout the NBA and shutting it and being the first sport to shut down. Thank you, Rudy.
Correct.
Go ahead.
The first guy who got diagnosed with COVID in all of professional sports.
Yeah.
That guy. And then Jaden McDaniels, their small forward, has done a great job on Kevin Durant. He's one of the best defenders in the league as well. Also, Anthony Edwards, we know what he's about, right? He's like a young Michael Jordan.
We've gone through 3 players. We haven't even mentioned Karl Anthony Towns playing well. So
correct. Yeah, so I think they're just making it really tough for them. They got to get going, man. I mean,
But
look,
come on, man. You have Booker. Booker's a great player. You got Booker, KD, for all the time, all the stuff that I don't like about KD. He's a top 15 player of all time, maybe a top 20 player of all time. And he shouldn't be past his prime, but he's playing like he's past his prime. They don't look good. They look bad.
They don't.
You can put it on Minnesota, I guess, but I'm just telling you, they didn't look good in the regular season. They don't look good in the playoffs. And I was very clear about this in August or whenever that trade happened or he signed his – I don't remember even how it worked. But it never was going to work. And I like to say sometimes I think I'm right. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I think you were smart in saying that, right? It was always, like you said, a major experiment. And so far, we'll see. I mean, they're going home. We'll see if they can do anything. But, you have this game, you get 18 from KD in 41 minutes. You get 20 from Booker in 42 minutes. 14 from Bill.
Not good enough.
Yeah, not at all.
I'm here for
not
it.
at all. And
I'm
then
here
their
for it.
depth. Eric Gordon had 15. I mean, it's not looking good for them at all. Minnesota looks great.
I don't know where buckets are going to come from. Our sponsor is Brown O'Haver. Brown O'Haver adjusts insurance claims for the insured, not the insurance company. Looks like Oklahoma is going to have some rain over the next 3 or 4 days. You get hit with a tornado, a huge hailstorm. You want to call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. They are not contractors. They are adjusters, and they adjust the insurance claim for you to get you more money. Clients that hire Brown O'Haver typically get 30 to 40% more than they get on their own. More importantly, they handle the claim from beginning to end, so you don't have to. Insurance companies suck, and it's Brown O'Haver's job to make sure that suckage doesn't impact your life. Give Brown O'Haver a call, 405-735-5510. Kevin, we started with Texas in the preview. Let's go with Oklahoma in the recap. There's one name that jumped out from watching that spring game, and it's Deion Burks. That guy was absolutely dynamic. 5 catches, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dude could have had 2 or more, 1 or 2 more, depending on if JFA could have hit him. Dude, he looks like the real deal. And to add him to a receiving core that includes Anderson. Why is his first name?
Andrell Anthony. Nick
Anderson, and even a Jaleel Farouk. Petaway looked good, but to add Deion Burks in the slot there, holy crap. He is everything that they talked about, and I'm really, really excited for that. Jackson Arnold was good. Not the efficiency numbers you want, 10 for 20, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, but never really in jeopardy of throwing interceptions. His misses were only where his receivers could catch him or no one could catch him. He had some throwaways, which I like to see even in a spring game. Didn't try to make anything work or anything go too hard there. And so I was really excited about the offense. The defense kind of let me down a little bit. I expect a little more explosion. You didn't have Billy Bowman. And sometimes I think it's hard when I just never think sometimes the defense is playing as hard as they could. Like they're not trying to kill the other team. So it was different. Michael Boganowski did have 6 tackles, and he looked like he was playing hard. He looked like he was playing for a roster spot. And he was hitting. He was trying to get on the field. He was hitting dudes. Yeah, I mean, he came up on a couple of guys really, really hard, which, in some cases you're like, we don't need the injury. In other cases, you're like, hey, man, this kid wants to play. PJ Adebaware had 2 sacks. That looked good. Caleb Hicks led with 30 yards rushing, a 30-yard touchdown run, 10 carries for 62 yards. So a good day by Caleb Hicks. Overall, it was pretty vanilla, but I was very, very excited about Deion Burks.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, first of all, that offense that you run, right? You're still running a similar offense than what you ran under Jeff Levy, which is the Art Browns offense. And we talked about the kind of inside zone running game and then the play action deep. The main play that they like to run is that slot fade, right? They like to get their slot receiver matched up against the safety and have him run right by him. And when you have a guy like Deion Burks in that position, it leads to a lot of big plays. So it looks like he'll be a problem for SEC defenses this year. Because, I mean, it's a big deal that you guys got him out of the portal. Everybody wanted him. And for you guys to get him, it looks like he's going to make an instant impact for you guys.
Yeah, he looked great. Visitors, we had all the visitors that were there. We talked about them in the last episode. Check that one out for a breakdown. Demonic Williams was there. He visits Texas this weekend. Is that
No,
right?
He is in Texas right now. He was there yesterday.
Oh,
yeah, and today.
oh.
But he's doing all 5. He's not just coming to OU in Texas. He's going to Oregon, and he might be going to A&M as well. So,
God,
and
dude,
from what I've heard, NIL is going to be a huge factor in his decision.
well, it has to be. Dude's got to get paid. Like, I mean,
it's a premium position. It is almost impossible to get high quality defensive tackles. Most of those guys aren't leaving their current situations. So I think he knows that.
oh no, he knows. He knows he's a mercenary right now. He is a mercenary.
Well,
it's a
did you see
1
that
year
video.
No, what's the video?
Yeah, you probably haven't because you didn't know he was in Austin. There was a video, I guess somebody filmed outside of his hotel, and you better believe Texas had the Lamborghini parked out there.
Oh, geez, here we go.
Yeah.
It's when I think when you recruit, it's fascinating, right? Because I've talked about Brent Venables and the methodology and the process in which he recruits out of high school, right? That he's looking for that right person. He's looking for the cultural fit. He's being very selective. He's trying to find people that are developmental driven and all these things, and realize that NIL plays a role in that, in
Correct.
securing that. But he's still hoping to get team first guys, which is not easy to do, but that's what he's trying to do. You've seen it. We talked about it. Billy Bowman, Stutzman, these guys that are staying, these team first kind of, they're still getting paid, but maybe not.
Yeah.
But what do you do if you're Brent Venables and you've got clearly what is a 1 year rental? He's not a.
He's only got a year left.
He's got a year left. He's not signing up to be a culture guy. He's signing up to get paid before. Do you unload? And if you unload on him because he is a coveted defensive lineman, and we all agree could be a game changer on anybody's defensive line in the country, he would be a game changer for Georgia. He's that good. He would play instant playing time. Do you unload? And if you do, if you're Brent Venables at the University of Oklahoma, does that impact the effort that you've made with your other players to avoid creating a me first mentality?
I think that's the risk, right? And it's hard because you need this guy, right? I think OU has some questions in the interior defensive line, just like Texas does, right? That's one of the biggest question marks for both of our programs right now going into the season. And having good defensive tackles can be the difference in, finishing 9-3 and 11-1 sometimes, right? So again, I think you always want the core of your program to be high school players that you can develop. But sometimes, man, you're trying to win this year, you got to do what you got to do. Now, I do think you should have a set price that you're not willing to go above for everybody. Now, his price is going to be higher than most, but be willing to pay him well, but not, just go above what is reasonable.
What do you think?
Even at a high rate.
What do you think?
No
idea. Do you have any insight into what a defensive lineman will make like a guy like him? I mean, an elite defensive lineman.
I really don't know what anybody is getting from an NIL standpoint. We heard the number about Quinn for the $1 million a year at Ohio State. I mean, was that true? I mean,
but that was 2 years ago, man.
Correct.
I don't know, man. You've got collectives created now. Is he a $2 million player? I wish that there was some transparency.
I know.
I wish there was some transparency there.
Me too. It would be fascinating to know how much someone like that, a big time quarterback that would be in the portal, or in this case, a high impact defensive lineman. What can they pull? What can they realistically get from Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon,
You know,
who
Oregon's
has
gonna pay.
who has the NIL back that's bigger than Texas and Oklahoma.
If it comes down to a straight NIL play, I put the favorite odds on Oregon, dude. I think
Me
Oregon
too.
loads. Dan Lanning's his defensive line coach. They're playing in the Big Ten, and they can pay him. Like I don't think I wouldn't question the kid's decision making if he goes to Oregon. In other
Me
words,
neither.
you know what I
Me
mean?
neither. It's 1 year. It's 1 year, man. And here's the thing, though. We've seen. I think both of us, our programs have brought in really good transfers, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing we've seen with the NIL, at least for the most part, is that players are still playing really hard, right? Like I'm not seeing a dip in intensity or anything like that from these guys from the transfer portal. I mean, we brought in
Not
AD Mitchell last year, at least the top end.
not
I did not
not at
mention his
our
name.
not at our schools.
Correct.
Not
Yeah.
at our
But
schools.
again, we have more of a foundation and more of a history there than other schools, like Texas A&M, for example, who I think is what you were getting at, right?
And I'm really curious to see what it does to Missouri. And you bring up a good point. I think that it's at the transfer level, because I think a school like Oklahoma and Texas, you need to be willing to pay for proven commodities. Deion Burks was a proven commodity. Um, uh, Williams from TCU is a proven commodity. We know how good he is. You've got to be willing to pay for that, because that guy, to your point, he's playing hard, but not just because he's getting paid, but he's still playing hard for the league. He's like
Right.
saying, if I go to Oklahoma, Texas, Ohio State, I could be the first overall draft. Like, you think
Right.
NIL money's worth something? I could go make $40 million my first year. So
Right.
I think that is why they're playing so hard. The problem is at an A&M when they drop the bag on true freshmen.
Yeah.
That I think that's the problem when you have you lose that give a rip factor, right? These kids don't know how to handle it.
NFL before. Yeah, we've seen guys in the NFL before. Jamarcus Russell, for example, right?
Yeah,
he got that high, guaranteed contract. He's getting $40 million guaranteed before he plays in the game. It's like, I got $40 million. Like, what do I need to play hard for? Especially if some guys don't love football like that.
So Williams is at Texas. He was at Oklahoma during the spring game. However, we did sign two guys that were at the spring game. A huge Branson Hickman, the center from SMU, which I think is an immediate plug and play person on our offensive line. Although I thought, at least in the game, offensive line looked okay. So I think that was a good sign in the game, but adding a starting center that we saw at SMU, again, a proven commodity. We know what he looks like. We had to go against him. We had a game plan for him. And then I don't know anything about this guy, but I saw that he committed either earlier today or maybe late last night. Jermaine Lowell out of Louisville.
Yeah,
Defensive
not
lineman.
too familiar with him either, but it seemed to be a...
Sounds like another body, though. 3-star. So I don't know that he's not Dominic Williams, right? Demonic or whatever. He's not Williams changing the game. But another body in the defensive line has never hurt any team ever.
Nah, nothing to lose there.
The University of Texas, spring game thoughts. The notes I saw was that Arch Manning distanced himself from Quinn Ewers. Pretty much established himself as basically throwing the gauntlet down at Sark to say, start me or else. That's what I got from that performance that Arch put in on.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is that the same thing you saw?
Well, yeah, you guys, you Sooners love to create narratives about Texans like that. So listen, he was great. It was great to see him out there. It was great to see him playing with confidence. Listen, Quinn Ewers is the starter. Same thing I said last year. Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter. But what I feel good about is if Quinn Ewers were to get injured, which we have seen in both of his years as a starting quarterback at the University of Texas, then Arch Manning will be ready to go, right? He may even be an upgrade over what we got from Malik Murphy last year, right?
Malik was solid. Malik was very solid.
He was, but I mean, they're at the same stage of their careers, right? Arch is where Malik Murphy was last year. Arch right now is where Malik Murphy was last year. And Arch is just more talented than Malik Murphy. I love Malik Murphy. I hope he does amazing at Duke this year. But I mean, he's a more talented guy. So I feel good about if Quinn were to get injured, or if for whatever reason he is, ineffective, which I don't think that will be the case at all. At all. But if that were to happen, I feel really good about our quarterback room. And we have another quarterback, true freshman, Trey Owens, who looked really good too. So he's someone to look for in the future.
How did your defensive line look? And how about the new receivers?
Okay. The defensive line, I still have the same questions I had before the spring game. We talked about this on the last podcast we did. Those questions on the defensive line and the interior were not going to be answered by anything we saw in the spring game, right? So we still need more players there. We need bodies. We need quality players there too. Alfred Collins played only a couple times. They actually had a pick six off of viewers. It was an RPO, and Ethan Burke, the edge player, batted it down, and Collins snatched it out of the air and ran it back 30 yards for a touchdown. Pretty fun play. But we need more players there. We picked up a JUCO, or not a JUCO, but a transfer from Arizona, a kid named Bill Norton. I think we talked about him last time. The big nose tackle. I think he's like 6'5", 330. He's not Devondre Sweat, right? But he is a good player. Was a good player for them. He'll help, but more is needed. That's why the Dominic Williams thing is very important for us. Very important for you guys too, because again, it's hard to find high impact defensive linemen in the transfer portal.
I know we just talked about Williams, but as it relates to the University of Texas and Oklahoma, do you have any kind of is there any indication on any of the boards, any of the recruiting boards, what the odds are, or
I haven't heard anything, man.
priority?
Apparently he's told them that he is going to take all 5 of his portal visits. So
okay.
Yeah, so
okay,
I think
go ahead. How'd your receivers look? Ryan Wingo, I heard, looked really good.
Ryan Wingo looked very good, and we've been hearing that during spring practices that he's been really impressing. He's got great size, right? I think he's like 6'2" and a half, about 205 pounds already. They also use him in the slot a little bit, which was very interesting. A guy like that in the slot creates some major mismatches during the season. DeAndre Moore looked good, caught a 75-yard touchdown pass from Arch. Also, Isaiah Bond, the transfer from Alabama, he had a 75-yard touchdown pass as well. So
what is wrong with your secondary? Why?
That's a good question, right? I think they tried some new coverages out there.
Did they put more? You wanted a little more pressure at the point of attack. Did you feel that?
Right. Not really. No.
Not really.
No. But I thought the game. You know how these spring games are, right? You can't take too much from them. The game plans are very vanilla, especially defensively, right? There were a couple of miscommunications out there where they run what's called a switch route, right? Where you have the outside receiver, the slot receiver, and one of them comes in motion right before the snap, and the purpose of this is to confuse the secondary on who is covering who, because the guys kind of swap positions right before the snap, and it led to a bust. And then a couple of times, corners just got beat by really fast receivers that we have. So we'll see, man. So things to clean up. I think we're still going to be active in the transfer portal and the secondary too. So we'll see. Secondary needs some work. Again, we talked about that in our last episode. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I was impressed with the receivers. We'll be good there this year. Running back too.
Defensively, any standouts? Any major concerns? I know you talked defensive line, but any? What about our linebackers and the secondary?
Linebackers will be fine. Anthony Hill didn't play much. I think he only played 14 snaps. He goes sideline to sideline. I think he's going to be one of the best linebackers in the country this year. So no concerns there. David Bender, the other linebacker, he's a solid starter. He's a drop off from Jalen Ford. But I mean, that's to be expected. You had a 5th-year guy. He's just a really good football player with him. So, but I think we'll be okay at linebacker. What really impressed me was the pass rush. Colton Bosick, who you guys remember, was briefly committed to University of Oklahoma last year.
That was a troll, is what that was.
It certainly came off that way in the end. But he looked good. It was really the first time we've seen him play right? Because he was injured most of last season. So he looked good out there. And the true freshman, Colin Simmons, we've talked about him since National Signing Day. 5-star edge guy out of Duncanville. He's there and he looks dynamic off the edge. He's a guy that I expect to play and be impactful as a true freshman, as a situational pass rusher. So we're really excited about him. We also got the kid Trey Moore from UTSA, transfer edge. He did not play. He was banged up, but I heard really good things about him during the spring. So I think the strength of the Texas defense this year is going to be their ability to rush the quarterback. Whereas last year, we were really good in the interior, stopping the run, and we got some interior pass rush out of Byron Murphy. But this year, interior is not going to be as good because, like we said, it can't be when you lose those guys. But the edge will be better at rushing the quarterback.
Kevin, the NFL draft is taking place this weekend.
Tomorrow.
According to
Thursday.
According to the latest mock draft from ESPN, anyway, 4 out of the top 5 picks are quarterbacks. Are those 4 guys, and I'm talking Caleb Williams, Daniels, May, and J.J. McCarthy, are they worthy of being the 4 out of the top 5 picks?
You know what? I don't know if they're 4 out of the 5 top players, but you know how this league works, man. You're not going to win without a good quarterback. It's not the 1980s, right? You can have mediocre quarterback play and still win a Super Bowl because you just ran the ball and played really good defense. You got to have a good quarterback, and they're really hard to find. So teams are always going to overreach for them. We've seen this for the last 10 to 15 years in the NFL draft.
I don't know. I guess y'all didn't play Michigan. Is J.J. McCarthy that good of a pro prospect that you're taking him?
I have no idea what to think about him. I mean, I guess he's got some traits. He's a really good athlete. He's made some, good throws on the run. He's a winner, clearly, but I just don't know enough about him. We have not seen him be asked to carry an offense at all.
Dude, there were times they asked him to not carry an offense. I'm thinking of the Penn State game where he doesn't throw a forward pass in the entire second half against a top 10, top 15 team in the country. They said, please don't throw a pass. That is fascinating.
Correct.
But again, I think you're right. In the NFL, you have to have good quarterback play. And when you look at the quarterbacks, there's a dearth of good quarterback play, right? The bottom half of the league, I don't think anybody is happy with their starter. Anybody 15, 16, definitely the bottom 10 is not happy with their starter. They would take a gamble on another player regardless of the situation.
Yeah.
But J.J. McCarthy, oh man.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of reminds me of Alex Smith a little bit, which, I mean, look, Alex Smith was a good quarterback, right? I mean, he's a guy that can take you to the playoffs.
They're saying that fifth pick is Minnesota. They got rid of Cousins, right? They traded Cousins?
Yeah, Cousins is with Atlanta.
So I guess they need a quarterback. I don't know, man. It just seems really weird. Texas players in the draft projected, or at least the projected first round picks. Byron Murphy to Cincinnati with the 18th pick. Xavier, I think this is an interesting one. Xavier Worthy to the Bills with the 28th pick. Replacement for Stephon Diggs. Same type of player?
I would imagine so. I think Worthy's more of a downfield threat, right? Whereas Diggs is more of a kind of a possession guy. But I mean, Worthy's very versatile. And they need a down the field threat. They haven't had that in a while.
Okay.
So
and then
I would like to think.
And then the last pick, according to ESPN, the last pick at 32 is A.D. Mitchell to Kansas City. If you're first of all, Kansas City needs receivers. My God, talk about how they won a Super Bowl. They did win the last Super Bowl, right?
They did.
How they won a Super Bowl with those wide receivers is beyond me. Wide receivers it's become a very vital, and it always has been good. But I mean, talk in the world of volume throws, right, where routinely a quarterback is attempting 40 passes a game now. you have to have wide receivers that can catch the ball, which doesn't sound that
Correct.
hard in the world of professional football, but it's pretty tough for Kansas City. Like they were not very good at it. And
No, they
so
were
it just blows my
horrible. I
mind.
couldn't stand their receiving core last year.
You add an AD Mitchell, though, I think that's a great pickup for them.
So do I. You know, their name had always been associated with Xavier Worthy, but they actually went out and they signed your boy, one Marquise Hollywood Brown
That's right. There,
in the
he's your downfield
offseason.
threat.
So
Yep.
yeah, correct. So you don't need Xavier pretty much do the same thing.
You don't need another burner. Yeah. Oklahoma, a single pick in the first round. Tyler Guyton projected to, where did I have him? Philly with the 22nd pick. It's good to have offensive linemen drafted. I think that will always work in Oklahoma's favor to have offensive line drafted in terms of recruiting. And so that's really, really positive for Oklahoma. It's just coming out of a 10-2 season. Now, I will say this in defense of Oklahoma, it's similar in a lot of ways to like Texas was 2 years ago, where you don't have their best players graduating.
Yeah.
And so Billy Bowman's not graduating, Stutzman's not graduating, Nick Anderson's not graduating. You don't have any running backs, no safeties. Like everybody kind of stayed, and so that's okay. We're going to see where next year kind of falls, but I'll take an offensive lineman in the first round. That's not the end of the world.
Oh yeah,
That's pretty good.
And it's just another feather in the cap of Bill Beatonbow, right?
Well,
This
I think
guy
it's probably
continues to have really good offensive line play and continues to develop. I mean, look, Tyler Guyton was a good player when he was at TCU, but he got there and became a much better player.
Yeah, I'm curious where they got Walter Rouse potentially going.
Yeah. And again, I mean, do you know, I don't know if you've heard this at all, so if you haven't, don't worry about it, but how many guys that OU expects to have drafted, period?
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
For Texas, I've heard anywhere between, 8 upwards of 10, which would be a big deal, right? Because, I mean, you know this, being an OU fan, the knock on Texas, especially the last, since really 2012 or so, is that Texas doesn't develop their players. They don't get their players to the NFL. And it was true. And thankfully, that narrative has been debunked by Sark and this staff. So it's cool to see.
I don't know. It's cool for you to see it. Yeah. I kind of liked it when Texas was not putting NFL draft players into the league. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
yeah.
that to me was more fun. So every person has a different definition of fun. You like Texas having put in pro players in the league. I liked it when Texas did not put players in the league. So it's kind of where we're at. That's the whole point of this podcast. That's the whole point of this podcast.
Correct. But I'm glad that because I'm telling you, man, 2 years ago, 0 players drafted after Sark's first year. 0.
Now,
it's mind blowing, man.
You still haven't had an offensive lineman drafted, have you, though, in like forever? Is that right?
I believe so. Well, we'll have Christian Jones this year, and then he'll go in the middle rounds, and then Kelvin Banks should be a first round pick next year.
No, that's crazy. That's just a crazy. That's just a crazy.
Yeah, it's mind blowing, man.
Yeah,
it's just completely mind blowing. Yeah.
Kevin, what time do you get to Paycom for a playoff game? If it's at 8:30, tip off is at 8:30. What does a pregame look like for Kevin Miller?
Okay, well, the Centennial Park, they have this thing, this kind of fan fest that they do before each playoff game, and that starts at 5. The doors to the Paycom Center, open at 6:30. Right, so 2 hours before tip-off. But they want everybody in there to start the atmosphere off early. So what they're doing is they're giving you half off of all food and drink in the arena for the first hour. So from 6:30 to 7:30, get half off all the concessions.
Anywhere? Like any of the
anywhere
concessions?
in any of them, yeah. Which is a huge deal, man. So on Sunday, we got there early. We went to the fan festival thing across the street at the Citadel Park. It was a good time. We got in there right at 6:30, got our half price concessions, and just kind of hung out, walked around. We didn't go to our seats till almost 8 o'clock or so. And I'm telling you, by the time we got to our seats, I mean, it was already packed, and like I said, it was deafening in there 30 minutes before tip off. So we probably won't get there as early as we did on Sunday, but we'll definitely do everything we can to get into our seats into the arena by 6:30.
So you get the
You
free
cannot
game.
beat half price concessions, man. Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so you split your tickets. You got 41 regular season tickets, 41 regular season games, and you split them with an.
Well,
What's
no,
that?
we got 20.
Okay, 20.
Yeah.
20. But now you're having to sit next to the people that share it most of the other time that you're not there. How are they as fans? Do we like them? Are they reasonable people, or do you think to yourself, my God, I can't believe these people were sitting next in our seats all this year?
I will tell. I honestly don't have an answer for that because they did not show up. There was nobody there in those two seats.
What?
I know. Okay, so I was tracking this. I went on Ticketmaster, and those two seats were available to be purchased all day. I mean, I started looking on Saturday. All day Saturday they were available. All day Sunday, and then at about 5 Sunday evening, they weren't on there anymore. They were not. I was like, okay, well, somebody must have bought them, so somebody will be sitting there, and nobody ever showed up.
Okay, Thunder fans, that is ridiculous. It's the playoffs. If you have a ticket, even if you can't use it, don't be cheap. Give it to somebody who can use it. Am I wrong about this, Kevin?
No,
this is
you're
the
not.
Playoffs, dude. This is
It's
playoffs.
Yeah, you got to fill the place up if you can. And
that's weird.
Yeah,
Someone trying to make a
pretty
buck.
bizarre, man. Yeah, which is fine, but yeah, I mean, would you rather just hold on to them than not sell them? So
Or just,
I don't know what happened
listen,
there.
you get within 2 hours of it, you got to go on Facebook and say, I got 2 free tickets. Like, come get them.
Yeah.
Or I guess you don't even have to get them anymore, right? You just email them.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even offer. It's all digital.
You don't get, okay.
It's all digital.
All right. This is a public service announcement to Thunder fans. Use your tickets or give them away. Don't be a butthole like Kevin's seatmates apparently are. Sounds like you're grubby, money-hungry people, and we don't need that in Thunder games. We need good vibes in Thunder and in the Paycom tonight. Am I right? Is that fair, Kevin? Can I say that?
You're 100% accurate.
All right. Kevin, enjoy the game tonight. This has been another stellar podcast. We appreciate everybody that listens, everybody that follows us and likes us. You guys are the best. Kevin, enjoy the game tonight. Boomer!
Okay.